It Up Maths. Okay, let's look at this question. There are 1,900 students at Summit Up Maths. 34% are over 19. What is 34% of 1,900? Now, the thing is that really they could have just asked you the end bit that I've written in red. The rest of it is just really saying the same thing, but this is the actual question. What is 34% of 1,900? And when I write that, I write 34% of times means of 1,900, okay? 34% of 1,900. Now, if you're in the exam and it's a calculator paper, it's reasonably straightforward to do because there's a special button. You can press the fraction 34 divided by 100, then press equals and you'll get 0.34 and then multiply it by the 1,900. But we've got a special button on the calculator, so we can do 34, press the shift button, and then if you go down to the answer button above that, it should say the percent. So press that, so 34%, then times, which means of, times 1,900. Okay, press the equals, and we've got 646. 646 is the total there. Okay, so that's our actual answer. 34% of 1,900 is 646. What if you were in the exam without a calculator? Well, we can see here that the 1,900 and the 100 are both multiples of 100. So we can cross the two zeros off for this one because of its hundreds and cross those two zeros off. So 34 over 1 is actually just 34. We can just go ahead and multiply in a long multiplication form 34 times 19. I'll just show you how to do that in case you're unsure. 34 times 19. Okay, start with the units. 9 times 4 is 36. 9 3s are 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, then we move on to the tens. Well, this one is really worth 10, okay, because that's the 10 from the 19. But we're going to put the tens multiple down there and cross it out. So we can just do 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. We can add them together. And as you can see, we're going to get 6, 4, 6, just exactly the same. Okay, so now we've got express 32 as a percentage of 45. Now, it looks like a really tricky question, but express, it just means really show it as a percentage of 45. And it's a little bit like you'd done a test and say you got 32 out of 45. Okay, so 32 out of 45, and then as it's a percentage, we're going to multiply it by 100, as cent means 100. Let me show you how you would do this on the calculator. So we can press 32 divided by 45, exactly as it says. Press the equals button, let's see. Now it's come out in fraction form. Okay, I like to press the SD button, which I affectionately call the Sue Deacon button, after myself. And then I can multiply my answer, which is 0.71 by the 100. 0.71 times 100. So now I'm there at Sue Deacon button again, 71%. 71%. I'm going to say the calculator actually says 71.1, and I've rounded that to 71%. Okay, let's look at this one then. Sandra bought a TV costing £380 plus 20% VAT. Now, VAT stands for value added tax, and that's put on a lot of goods. Not so much children's goods, although we did learn that a car seat would have 5% VAT on it. So when the shopkeeper puts their prices on for the customer, they add the VAT in so that you just pay the price you see. If you were to go to a wholesaler, quite often you see the price, but then you have to add VAT on top of that. So what the price says on the ticket might be more than you actually pay. So let's see how much this TV will have cost Sandra at £380 plus 20% VAT. Now, £380. Okay. Now, I'm going to use a multiplier for this, and those of you in my class will know what I mean by this. I'm going to put 1 down to represent the whole of this £380, like one whole one, 100%, all of it. Okay, but we want all of it plus 20%, so I'm going to put 1.2. 2 represents the 20 because the 2 is in the tens column. Okay, so I'm simply, to get my answer for this, going to multiply 380 by 1.2. And I've got my calculator here. So here we go. Let's do that now. 380 multiplied by 1.2 equals 456. 456, okay? £456. Okay, so here we have quite a meaty question, really. There are 320 children in a school. 30% of the 50 year 8s travel by bus. Okay, notice that 50 and 8 is written in words. Don't let that put you off if ever that happens in the exam. I don't think it happens often, but it's best to just be familiar with all the spellings of the numbers. So 320 children in the school, okay? Let's see what the actual question is. Write the number of year 8s that travel by bus as a fraction of all the children. We know our answer is going to end up, in fraction form, okay? And it's going to be a fraction of all the children. Let's do that first. Fraction of all the children, which is 320. So we've already made a start just by writing that in. It's this top bit that we've got to find. And what does it tell us? It says we want to write the number of year 8s that travel by bus. How can we find that out? Well, 30% of the 50 year 8s travel by bus. So let's write that down. 30% of the 50 year 8s travel by bus. So we're basically going to do this calculation to find out this number, and then we will put that on the top of our fraction. So let's cancel by 10 here and cancel by 10 here, and then we're just literally left with 3 times 5, which equals 15. Okay, so there's 15 children in year 8 that travel to school by bus, and so this gives us the fraction 15 out of 320 children. Now you can tell that this is a multiple of 5 and this is a multiple of 5. We can tell that because that ends in 5 and that ends in 0. So you can then cancel that down further, and it will be 5s into 15 will give us 3. And 5s into 320, just let me think, will be 64. Okay, so it doesn't say to leave it in its simplest form, actually, so you could have left it like that. You're just demonstrating that you can interpret the question and then that you can leave it in fraction form. I have simplified it down there to show you how to do that. Okay, so in this question, Jane sells car seats at a price of £22 plus 5% VAT. Okay, we talked about that earlier. That's value added tax. It's on a lesser rate on the car seat. Let's see, it's if she sells 28, how much money will she receive? Well, so we're going to need the answer to the question in a money form. Yeah, so that's what we're looking for, how much money she's going to get. And she sells them at a price of £22 plus 5% VAT. So £22. Okay, now do you remember when I spoke about a multiplier earlier? And the multiplier is going to be all of this amount plus 5%. Okay, all of it, which is a whole one, plus 5%. You could look at this as 105%. All of it, 100% and 5% more. We write it in decimal form in order to do our full calculation. So if we were to do 22 times 1.05, okay, you can do that on your calculator now. Pause the video and just check you get the same answer as me. And the answer is £23 and 10 pence. Okay, so we've gone through that using the multiplier, and we can write our final answer in the correct space on the exam. £23 and 10 pence. If you would find that difficult to do, you can find 5% and add it to the original amount. If you can get your head round using this multiplier, it will save you a lot of time. Okay, there we are. Okay, so just to finish the end of that question, Jane had sold 28 seats, hadn't she? And so we multiply that by the £23.10 that we found was the value of each seat. Just pause and do that on your calculator or long multiplication. And the answer you should get is £646.80 as the total amount she would receive for selling the 28 car seats. Okay, so what is 54% of 2,345? Nice straightforward question. I've noticed immediately that the question is asking us to find a percentage of some money. So I've written a pound sign at the bottom because quite often that can be the bit that's missed when you're finishing a question properly. So let's have a look. 54% of 2,345. So I'm going to get my calculator and either put in 54, shift and press the percent button, or I'm going to go 54 divided by 100 equals and multiply it by 2345. Okay, so this is the way forward with this one. You can use a multiplier if you like by taking the 54 away from 100 and putting that into decimal form. Let's look at what answer we get on the calculator. 1266.3. Okay, now the question's in money form, and the problem is lots of students think that this is the answer. It's not the answer. It's not acceptable to leave it like that. You have to go the next step along, which means that you have to write the actual amount of this in money. So this side straightforward, 1266, and then we've got 0.3. But you never go into a shop and see this, would you? You'd never see that as a price on something. So we must put the 0 on the end, okay? When we're writing in money, currency, there's always these 2 at the end when we're using our pounds to represent the amount of pence we've got out of the 100 pence that would be in a pound. Okay, so let's look at this. What is the percentage increase in the number of cars sold if in 2017 the garage sold 1,800 cars and in 2018 they sold 2,004 cars? Round this to one decimal place. Okay, so what is the percentage increase? We know the answer to our question is going to end up in a percentage because they're asking for what is the percentage increase. We know it's going to end up to 1 decimal place, so we only want 1 after the decimal. Okay, so we can prepare for our answer. Now let's have a look at how I started this. We looked at the new number of cars sold, which was 2004, and the old, which was the cars sold the year before. And then I calculated the difference by taking the 1800 from the 2004. So the difference was that they sold 204 cars more in 2018. Okay, this is the formula. Okay, the difference divided by the original times 100 will give us the percentage increased. So the difference we calculated here as 204, and we're going to divide that by the original amount. That's the old amount, the first amount, 1800. We multiply by 100, and that will give us our percentage increase. I'm going to, I think I'll do this without a calculator because I can get rid of the zeros here, and I'm left with 204 divided by 18. Let's just run through that and see if it's a reasonably easy one to do without a calculator. 18 into 2 doesn't go. We're not going to put the 0 there because it's the beginning of a whole number, so it would be not necessary. 18 into 20 goes 1. That will leave 2. 18 into 24 only goes 1 as well. So now we've got 6 left over. We'll put a decimal down. 6, and there's our 0. 18 into 60. I know that that goes 3 times, and that will leave me 6 still. So it looks like it's just going to keep recurring. 18 into 63. Yes, it's just going to keep recurring. It asks us to round to 1 decimal place. Well, this is the 1 decimal place. Okay, so that's all we want. We look at the number after that and we see it's a 3, which is lower than 5. So we just round off. So let's write that in there. That's our 1 decimal place, and the whole number's here 11. So our answer is 11.3%. Okay, I've started using a piece of paper to cover up with because hopefully that's going to eliminate a bit of the focus problems. Let's have a look then at this question. Between the 1970s and 2014, the panda population grew from 1,000 to 1,864. Okay, the pandas now are not deemed to be an endangered species anymore from 2016, which is good news because of this growth in their population. So the question is work out the percentage increase. Now, as you can remember, we look at the difference divided by the original times 100. Okay, let's just move along and see. Right, the difference is we're going to get 1,864. Okay, and take away the 1,000, which was the original amount, and find out the difference. And that difference will obviously be 864. Okay, so we're going to multiply that by 100. So let's get a pen, and the first thing we can do here is we can cancel this 100 out with 2 of the zeros there. Okay, and we're left with 864 divided by 10. When we divide by 10, we have the decimal points here, but when we divide by 10, the decimal place will go to here, which will leave us with 86.4. And there we can see 86.4% is our percentage increase. Okay, last one for now. Sue bought a skirt normally costing £32 in a sale. It was reduced by 15%. What price did Sue pay? Okay, so there's the £32 here that she would normally have paid for the skirt, but I'm going to multiply that by the amount she will pay for the skirt. I'm going to use a multiplier, 0.85. So if you imagine 100, which is the percent of this, the total cost, 100%, take the 15 off, we're left with 85. Because it's a percentage, we would normally put 85% of this amount, okay? But we're going to move it into a decimal form and call it the multiplier. So I call it 0. We haven't got the whole amount. We've only got 0.85. We multiply 32 times 0.85. And the answer we get is £27.20. Okay, let's run through this multiplier again. Imagine the 100% and take away 15. You are left with 85%. So basically, instead of paying 100%, which would be the £32, we're only paying 85% of the garment price. And we're representing that in what we call a multiplier. The multiplier here is the 85%, and we've written it in decimal form. If you imagine writing 85% as a fraction, 85%, it's 85 divided by 100. 85, if we divide that by 100, 1, 2, we get 0.85. That's how I've arrived at the multiplier. It's a quicker method of finding a new price. Not everybody likes using this, but if you can get used to using it, will help with your